Since discovering 4 notes in the harmonic chromatic scale that don't seem to be acknowledged anywhere, I've been referring to W, X, Y, and Z as phantom notes, which brings to mind the Phantom of the Opera, a story about a monster who hides himself in the basements of the Paris Opera House. Instead of 1 phantom, these notes are 4, but the same level of mystery surrounds them, which is just as intriguing as the one surrounding the Parisian angel of music. One clue as to the purpose of the 4 phantom notes might be seen here. That the equally tempered scale, in comparison with the harmonic scale, is stretched out in the latter half to fill in for their absence. The 4 phantom notes don't appear in the beginning of the scale, so both the equally tempered and harmonic scale correspond fairly close together in the first 6 notes. It isn't until the second half of the scale that we see larger shifts in the notes as they try to fill in the gap created by the 4 missing frequencies. These 4 notes seem to exist for the purpose of expanding some of the intervals in the latter half of the scale. And in the process of transposing from one key to another, the 4 phantom notes seem to be placeholders. For example, if we want to transpose into the key of G in an equally tempered scale, we'd simply move all the notes around the circle until G occupied the position of tonic at the top. But in the harmonic chromatic scale, if we transpose to the key of G, simply moving all the notes by the same distance around the circle, we would just swap C and G. However, we know that C is not the perfect fifth of G, so transposition can't work just by moving every note the same distance around the circle. But if we fix the 4 phantom notes permanently in their spots, and move the rest of the notes around so G is on top, then the note of D falls naturally into the position of the perfect fifth on the bottom. And that works because D is the perfect fifth off the tonic of G. One definition of the word phantom is placeholder. Functioning as placeholders, these 4 phantom notes are serving a structural purpose in the scale, just as the 7 structural beams in the harmonic chromatic scale that I've discussed both in my book and in earlier videos. Including the 4 phantom notes in the chromatic scale increases the number of that scale from 12 notes to 16. And the full chromatic scale, including the phantom notes, occurs in the harmonic series between harmonics 16 and 32. So it's extremely interesting to me that the famous falling chandelier in Andrew Lloyd Webber's version of the Phantom of the Opera places 32 bulbs in its outer circle and holds 16 in its inner circle. Is there some disclosure then to be found in the Phantom of the Opera? In the original story, written by Gaston Leroux in 1910, another set of 4 distinct musical notes are highlighted, but they aren't the 4 phantom notes in the harmonic scale. These notes are the 4 letters spelling the surname of the central character, Christine Daae: D, A, and E. They form a peculiar surname, but their order comes into clear focus when we realize that from the tonic of D, A is the perfect fifth, and from the tonic of A, E is the perfect fifth. The notes of D and A are also based on the power of 3, as D is the 9th harmonic and A is the 27th, which is 9 tripled. So building off the tonic of A, the frequency value of E in this series becomes 81. The value given in Pythagorean tuning or stacking fifths, and not 80, which is the 4th octave of E when based off harmonic 5. In my book, I explain that this is a function of E in the harmonic series. It's tempered by the Mies having its frequency reduced from the Pythagorean 81 Hz down to 80 Hz in order to avoid the Pythagorean comma that prevents the doubled octave. Christine Daae, then, represents the untempered stacking of fifths, the Pythagorean tuning method based on the power of 3. So what do the other characters represent? The phantom on his face represents Satan himself. His name is Eric, but in the novel he tells Christine that he doesn't have a name and that he took the name of Eric by accident. Taking this name, though, would seem to be quite deliberate, because it's the reverse of the aria Kyrie eleison, an aria the phantom mentions by name, as it's included in his own wedding mass. But this is all just a distraction, because ultimately the phantom expresses a musical metaphor, the 5th harmonic, represented by box 5 on the grand tier above the audience seats. And it's the 5th harmonic, the note of E scaled up to its 4th octave at 80 Hz, that shows it to be opposing E at 81 Hz. Though he loves her, the phantom is opposing the character of Christine Daae, just as the harmonic series opposes Pythagorean tuning. And what about the more modern method of tuning, equal temperament? Is that tuning method represented in the Phantom of the Opera? Here, things get a bit more complicated, but its expression centers around Christine's true love, Raoul de Chagny. Raoul was held for a time by the Phantom in the hexagonal torture chamber located below ground in the 5th level of the Opera House cellars. And it was here that he carved his initials, R.C. As I've discussed earlier, cellars and basements underground can represent a change in legal jurisdiction, allowing actions to take place that would be illegal above ground. The Masonic Lodge of Copenhagen blatantly alludes to this fact with its upside-down logo. The novel tells us a few things about the Phantom not revealed in the movie versions of the story. That the Phantom was a contractor who helped build the Paris Opera House, and that his father, the father who rejected him for his deformity, was a master mason. In the novel, it's explained that the Phantom connected these underground levels with a series of trapdoors, and that he was known as the trapdoor lover. It was likely from his master mason father that the Phantom learned these construction skills and the importance of constructing underground levels. The Masons have various connections to Rosicrucianism, a secret society that Raoul de Chagny, as R.C., points to. In the Rosicrucian Manifesto, it's explained that Father R.C. died at the age of 106. twice the value of 53, which is a geometric angle that Masons venerate and use in their logo. And that RC was buried in a vault with 7 sides, one more side than the hexagonal vault in which Raoul was tortured by the Phantom. Raoul seems to be representing RC and the Rosicrucians. In the cemetery scene of the novel, he's dazzled by an outgrowth of red roses against the white snow, the flower being central to the rose cross symbol. But how does this all relate to equal temperament tuning? The Rosicrucian Manifesto explains that Father RC was buried along with books and manuscripts that revealed great truths, as well as wonderful artificial songs. Back when the manifesto was written, the word artificial had a more nuanced meaning. It described a work belonging to art, but it's from this idea that man's artistic skills can mimic something natural that the word artificial has taken on connotations meaning false or fake, signifying that those skilled enough at their art can counterfeit what is otherwise considered to be real, natural, or original. Looking at the 3 basic methods of tuning music, harmonic, Pythagorean, and equal temperament, the first 2 are mathematically pure, natural, and rational. Harmonic tuning is based on doubling, and Pythagorean tuning is based on tripling. But equal temperament tuning required the skill and art of various mathematicians to perfect. One of the first mathematicians to tackle the problem of equal temperament was Galileo's father, Vincenzo Galilei, who came up with a tuning ratio of 18:17. But the polymath Marin Mersenne later used the Masonic tools of a straightedge and compass to improve on this ratio. Ultimately, Mersenne calculated equally tempered intervals using the square root of 2. The square root of 2 is an irrational number, and it generates musical intervals that could well be described as artificial, as belonging to the art and craft of very skilled mathematicians. And this method of tuning isn't only represented by Raoul and his Rosicrucian initials. Other subtle details in the story point back to the square root of 2. In the novel, the Phantom's trapdoors are described as square. Equating a trapdoor with equal temperament tuning could also suggest that Leroux believed, as many people do, that this form of tuning, with its irrational intervals, was physically detrimental to human health, a musical trapdoor through which humanity would fall. When Raoul and the Persian finally end up in the torture chamber, they're faced with an iron tree, an artificial tree that requires no roots. This Phantom of the Opera video game shows roots on the iron tree. But roots nourish a tree with water, and one feature of the torture chamber is that it generates great thirst because of its heat, and those inside become very thirsty. The Persian and Raoul eventually escape from the torture chamber and find barrels they hope to drink from, but the barrels contain gunpowder and nothing liquid. The metaphor of an artificial tree in a hot, dry environment inducing thirst suggests an ultimately unsatisfying root in connection with the iron tree. Raoul, as RC, represents the secret societies of knowledge, philosophy, and art that allowed the artificial tuning system of equal temperament, based on the square root of 2, to be crafted and perfected. There is one detail from the novel that places commentary on this subject of musical tuning, and that also touches on the central focus of my research, the overlap between music theory and monetary theory. The Phantom extorts a monthly payment from the opera owners. In the novel, the new owners place their first payment to the Phantom inside a sealed envelope. The envelope appears to sit in box 5 unopened, and when the owners take the envelope back and open it up, Leroux writes that the 20 real notes were gone and had been replaced by 20 notes of the Bank of St. Farse. The number 20 is significant. If we count 20 notes up from the tonic of C using the traditional 12-note chromatic scale, and if we do not include the 4 phantom notes, we end at G, the perfect fifth in the next octave. These 20 notes represent the tonic tripled, which is how Pythagorean tuning generates the interval of the perfect fifth. These 20 notes are genuine notes, real money of significant value. The harmonic series, however, does not generate the perfect fifth of the next octave by tripling. Instead, it doubles the octave and adds these values together. However, in the interval between C and G, the result is exactly the same, and these harmonic notes are also genuine because the intervals of Pythagorean and harmonic tuning match. But 20 notes based on Farse, 20 fake or equally tempered notes, will change this interval's frequency. The C frequency of 261.63 tripled is 784.89 Hz. But equal temperament tunes this 20th note to 783.99 Hz at a loss of value. This concept of a debt to the note, notes tuned or valued by fiat, is a central theme of my book, The Next Octave. Again, these equally tempered frequencies are calculated using the square root of 2, an irrational number, producing an artificial note based on art, or, in Leroux's words, generated by the Bank of St. Farse. This is a lot of encoded disclosure about the hidden history of music, but did Leroux ever hint at the 4 phantom notes, the 4 placeholder notes of the harmonic chromatic scale? In a brief scene that seems somewhat unrelated to the overall plot of the story, the new owners of the opera house discuss its stable, used to house 12 horses. Any reference to the number 12 in a musical story like Phantom of the Opera could be pointing to the traditional chromatic scale of 12 notes, and in Chapter 7 of the novel, the following conversation takes place. Is there a stable at the opera? Upon my word, I didn't know. Where is it? In the cellars, on the rotunda side. It's a very important apartment. We have 12 horses. 12 horses? And what for, in heaven's name? Why, we want trained horses for the processions in the Juive, the Profeta, and so on. Horses used to the boards. A few lines later, we read this. I'm not talking of the horses, but of the stablemen. How many stablemen have you, Monsieur Lachenel? 6 stablemen. That's at least 2 too many. These are places created and forced upon us by the Undersecretary for Fine Arts. We don't need more than 4 stablemen for 12 horses. I believe that this first line is really saying, I'm not talking of the notes, but of the placeholders, the places performing a regulatory and structural function in the scale. It's all just speculation, but I believe that the phantom in the novel represents the harmonic series and its 4 phantom placeholder notes. He's competing with Raoul de Chauny, the RC, and his tuning method contrived by the artful craftsmen of secret societies. Whoever she chooses, Christine's pure intervals and Pythagorean tuning would become subservient to either man's method of tuning. But the Phantom was too deformed and ugly to win this competition. His appearance wasn't beautiful enough, and his deformity correlates to the fact that harmonically tuned intervals are unable to change keys. And that's why I believe his bag of keys that open various cellar doors is named the Bag of Life and Death. This is why the chandelier, representing in the modern film the 16-note scale, crashes down on the audience of people listening to the music, representing the loss, through abandonment, of harmonic tuning. I'm grateful for any feedback. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.